Corporal punishment, as defined by the American Academy of Pediatrics, is any system of teaching and caregiving that allows children to become competent and self-controlled through their journey of life. This is commonly referred to as spanking. As children, I can remember me and my brother being spanked quite often. I remember in school I was allowed to be spanked. I attended a Baptist preschool, and at this preschool my mother had to sign a waiver form that allowed the teachers to spank us with a ping pong paddle if in order to be disciplined. In my case, I had forged my signature on my journal assignment with red crayon, was brought into my principal's office, told to kneel, was spanked 3 times, and then afterwards I had to say a prayer of forgiveness towards God. And this event has stuck with me into my adulthood. Obviously, I can remember it very vividly. In fact, in the United States, 31 states have made it illegal for corporal punishment in schools, while 19 states are still allowing corporal punishment, Missouri being one of those. 72% of Americans say that spanking by a grade school teacher should not be allowed. So while my experience may not have been common, it's still happening to other children out there right now. So what we begin to ask ourselves is, wow, people are saying we shouldn't be spanking in schools and we've made that mostly illegal. What are they saying about spanking at home? In a survey of over 2,000 adults in 2013, when they were asked, is it appropriate for a parent to spank their child, 81% of those adults said yes, it is. And when they were asked again, were you spanked as a child? 86% overwhelmingly said yes, I was spanked as a child. So what becomes interesting to me is that while the majority of adults seem to agree that spanking at home is okay and it happened to me, why have we seen a 13% decrease since 1995 saying, I would spank my child, or I am currently spanking my child? I think this comes to a dramatic conclusion of what is physical discipline versus what is physical abuse, and how do we clearly define the two and prevent ourselves from crossing the line from discipline to abuse. To better understand the differences between physical abuse and corporal punishment, we really need to define physical abuse. It can be characterized by the infliction of physical injury as a result of punching, beating, kicking, biting, burning, shaking, or otherwise harming a child. When we refer back to corporal punishment, there really aren't any characteristics involved or outlined in that definition, but we can make the assumption based on prior childhood experiences and vast social knowledge that they're talking about spanking. Now, the question is, does it work? We've probably all been spanked, but does it work? I didn't grow up to be a criminal, neither did my brother, and I'm assuming none of you grew up to be criminals, but I can't speak. So the question becomes, does corporal punishment actually work? If 81% of the nation believes that we as parents can commit corporal punishment, then we must believe that it's working, right? As I am not a parent yet and I don't know many people who are parents, I thought the best next thing would be to sit down with someone who has both experience as a social worker with physical abuse cases and who is also a parent who admits that they used corporal punishment in their home and that they don't believe that there are any long-term effects. I just want to understand, since you know what child abuse is, you've had a lot of experience with physical abuse, and you have admitted to me that you spanked and you believe in corporal punishment. So I just want to ask you what you think the cons are in the short term for corporal punishment.
The downside of spanking a child or punishing a child in a physical way would be that it would cause strife between the child who looks toward you as a loving, and why would this parent want to cause harm to me?
And
And that would be a short term.
okay, are there any other ones that you could think of?
that the child might, just as I was, be socialized that this is a good way to deal with discipline in a child, and it's not the best way.
And do you think there are any long-term negative effects?
The long-term negative, as I said, that the child is socialized, that spanking
That the child would do.
child is okay, and
Okay. What if I told you that research actually shows that if you use corporal punishment on your child, you can expect a criminal behavior. They're at higher risk for criminal behavior when they become an adult. They're at higher risk for spanking and possibly crossing the line into abuse with both their spouse and child. And they have a decreased mental capacity, meaning they're higher risk for depression, anxiety, and other disorders. Would you be alarmed if I told you that?
that I would agree with that. That would be an effect of the using physical punishment. Yes, I would agree with it.
Okay. And do you think that
But when you're socialized and
Oh, no, go ahead.
when you're socialized, it's hard to break that when you're under stress
Mm-hmm.
and your child has done something really wrong.
Yes, I would agree with that. Okay, and so could you tell me what the positive effects would be for corporal punishment, both long term and short term?
It's the very effective, and because a young child is going. The thought of spanking is a pretty serious thing. So it would be a quick fix, but it's not the best way to handle discipline.
And so if I told you that there are no actual scientifically proven, research proved positive effects other than immediate compliance, which is not the same as behavior reform, would that upset you or make you think any differently about corporal punishment?
I would say that if your child is running out into a street of busy cars and you grab that child and spank them, think before, when you tell them not to street, that they're going to tell them, it's going to hurt if I do this.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us your opinion, and thank you for helping out with my research. After conducting Mr. Bramley's interview, I really felt a little lost, and before I concluded on where I was going to stand on corporal punishment, I really wanted to get the opinion of my friends, and so I conducted some research. I created a SurveyMonkey, and I published it on my Facebook and got about 25 responses back about corporal punishment. I began my survey by asking if they had ever experienced corporal punishment. 52% of respondents said that they had. I then asked where were they experiencing corporal punishment. The majority said at home by a parent or by extended family. Some had experienced it at school, and surprisingly, one had responded that they had experienced corporal punishment by a babysitter or a religious organization. I continued to ask, do they believe that corporal punishment is child abuse? And the results were so varied that I needed some more elaboration. It became apparent in the elaboration that most people agreed that corporal punishment wasn't going to necessarily always be physical abuse unless it was done in anger or was very severe and left marks. I only had one respondent that said it clearly isn't the proper way to change behavior, so it's really not necessary. After reading various articles that support corporal punishment or abandon corporal punishment, interviewing Rick Bramley, and getting a consensus from people whose opinion I respect, I would have to agree that corporal punishment is not child abuse, but I don't agree that it would be the first form of discipline that I would turn to either. I believe that we can discipline children through other means, like timeouts, removing privileges, verbal reasoning, and positive reinforcement for good behaviors. I believe that these are the most effective means to change behavior. Research has proven this time and time again. There are not negative effects for creating a sticker chart for your child, or taking them for ice cream for good grades, or even modeling behavior. So why would we choose to spank our child instead? It just seems like an easy road with a lot of risk involved.